Don't call it a comeback. We've been here for years. It's Parrish. It's Spencer. It's the P.O.S Show on Love Wrestling. It's Parrish, it's Spencer, and it is Joe Jr. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, we figured that it is Fastlane. It is the final stop on the road to WrestleMania. And of course, that means that there is a brand new edition of the P.O.S Show coming live from Love Wrestling onto your screens, wherever you may be watching, whether it's Facebook, Twitch, or YouTube Live. Thank you for taking the time this Sunday morning to find out what we think about WWE Fastlane. But of course, it ain't just us three, Parrish, Parrish, Joe, and myself, that are wanting to get their comments in. If you guys are watching wherever it may be, let us know. Get your comments in. Give us your thoughts on today's pay-per-view, one that I know that I'm very, very excited for, despite the fact that the odds are stacked against me heading into my final defense of the Love Wrestling Elite Championship I carry over my shoulder. We, of course, had to bring in a special guest. We had to make it a little more difficult because this is the midst of a record-setting title reign here, people. You got to try and end it, and especially you got to try and build some major storylines on the road to WrestleMania. Parrish, you're my regular co-host. You were my ostensible challenger for the Love Wrestling Championship then, now, and forever. How are you doing, man? Good to see you.
I'm doing well. I just think it's funny that all of a sudden a third person comes in and you're like, oh, no, I'm scared. And what real man doesn't like a true three-way? Shame on you. It is objectively more difficult to fight two people than one. I don't know how else I can put that.
Your task
is not changing. It's not like you actually have to wrestle. You're doing the same task with the same.
Well, and trust me, I'm sure there's some people around here that could tell you I shouldn't even be in journalism. But that's Alberta Wrestling.
Even Spider-Man is against you.
Joe Jr., your first appearance on the P.O.S Show. It's good to see you, man. How are you doing this morning?
I am doing very well. Very excited for this event tonight. Should be some good matches throughout. Very excited, and I'm very excited to take that belt off your shoulder, hopefully. So
it's a championship.
I'm sorry, a championship off your shoulder. Sorry.
It's a cummerbund if we want to go with the actual scientific definitions of things here. But that's not for me to get into.
A belt holds up your pants. This is a title.
Thank you. There we go. We've got our nomenclature down.
Our titles here at Love Wrestling.
Now, of course, ladies and gentlemen, as we've alluded to, the Love Wrestling Elite Championship on the line today. Parrish, myself, and Joe will be giving our Fastlane predictions throughout the show. But of course, as we've said a couple of times, we like to chat pro wrestling with our friends. That's the goal of Love Wrestling. So if you're in the comment section, say hi, give us your thoughts, and of course, tell me how great my predictions are in comparison to the other two individuals on the show. Let's just give them a quick rundown of the rules, Parrish, if you've got the time for it, because I think we all know that with it being my birthday yesterday, not only is it harder to talk, but it hurts my head a lot more too today. So I'll pass this one on to you.
I mean, I was fine on Thursday, the day after mine, but you be you. So the rules for Fastlane and our prediction show here, we have 1 point for a win and negative point for a loss, because you know what? If you're dumb, you should be rewarded justifiably so for that. And then for title matches, it is doubled, so 2 points for a title win and negative 2 points for a title loss. And because we know they're very rare, and there's only one person on the show that has successfully predicted one, we have 3 points for a draw. And then, well, because we like to give a little bit of a coup d'etat to all of those who actually do that little bit of extra. As we all know, that difference between extra and extraordinary is that little extra. We have one additional point for every called finish, and a called finish must happen exactly as predicted. And that is the rule book for tonight's Fastlane prediction here on the P.O.S Show.
It's what I'm excited for, and I think, Joe, we'll start with you because you started alluding to it right off the bat. How have you felt about the build-up to Fastlane? How have you felt about the card announced for tonight? I think that it's been a bit of a mixed bag on both ends of things, but I think I say it every time we do a show like this. I'm always excited for a pay-per-view, whether it's WWE, AEW, Impact, and ROH's special events. There are enough great wrestlers in all of those promotions that you should be able to sit down and watch an event and enjoy yourself. It does become all about the build. And I think you and I are a little aligned. And there's been some really high highs and some really low lows as far as the last few weeks go.
Yeah, I would agree. I think you know, with WWE, it's kind of a mixed bag. I feel like when we, even last week on the brunch, we talked about the WrestleMania build. Like, it's very hit or miss with all their builds when they're, you know, when we're heading into pay-per-views like this. But like you said, a pay-per-view it always has that special feel the day of. It's like, oh, it's a big event. Even if the build has been which this one I feel like has been The Roman Daniel Bryan build, I think, has been good. I thought Friday night was really good. The way that I think that build has been good. Friday night established that one for real. But a couple of the other ones have been but the show itself, the card, I think, is very good. And I think from a wrestling perspective and in-ring perspective, we're going to see some really top-notch matches tonight and a few that I'm super duper excited for when we get into them. Yeah.
Absolutely. Parrish, any matches on the card you're particularly excited for? Any that you really wouldn't want to see? What are your thoughts heading in?
Well, I mean, the one thing I'm not really looking forward to is the Roman Bryan match, and I'll tell you why. And it's simply because I feel this is when they make a match and you 100% feel like you already know the winner before they even announce the match. To me, it really softens the story that they can tell, and I don't enjoy that. Like, we all knew that Roman Reigns was going to walk out of Chamber as champion, so it kind of really soured that for me because I like that ability to not know what's going on. With that being said, I'm very curious to see the Nakamura Seth Rollins match because I feel that's a match that can go either way, and I really feel like this is something to help build the Cesaro Rollins thing. But I think it's an opportunity for Nakamura to really showcase what he has against a top guy like Seth Rollins. And I really like that. I like the fact that they're taking guys that they haven't used properly in the last year and really giving them a true shot. Now, if they can find out, you know, how to use Andrade and Aleister Black and Murphy, I'd be a little bit more on board with this.
Yeah. No, I know what you mean. And I think you both have valid points. It's going to be a great card. I think your reasoning for not being all that interested in Reigns Bryan is definitely a valid one. It just, for me, I am so excited for this one because to me, by hook or by crook, however it ends, I think that this is going to result in Daniel Bryan being added to the Universal title match at Mania. And I do agree that there could have been a different route to get there, maybe. I would have been of the preference. I just would have been of the preference that if that was going to happen, give Daniel Bryan that Rumble win. But either way, man, like I'm very, very excited about it because of the potential for the future, not because I'm fairly confident in my prediction with it as well. I have been over the last 3 months of defending my championship, so I ain't going to give it out here. I'm going to give that up in just a little bit.
Can I make one point, though?
Of course you can make one point.
You just said
only now 1 point.
That you wish Daniel Bryan would have won the Rumble, which clearly somebody would have predicted and would have won the title there. So I'm just saying, 2 months later, we're agreeing with what I predicted 2 months ago.
So, Parrish, the benefit of that is I get to be both right in my opinion. I get to carry the championship and feel morally right. It works for me. Before we head to our predictions, are headed into, we like to take a quick break early in the show, get people topped up on their morning beverages because there's lots to predict. We don't want to cut ourselves off halfway through. So a quick little preview of what I've got going on. But first, we got to give a quick shout out to our friend Reese on Wrestling in the comments, a great individual. And if you guys are watching on YouTube right now, it's just a click away over the break to go and subscribe. If you're watching on Twitch or Facebook, of course, you guys have all the time in the world over the break to take a couple extra clicks. Support good people in pro wrestling like Reese, who also is recognizing it's only 364 more days until my birthday, which is absolutely nuts for me to think about. Let me tell you, man, the headache today certainly will last about until that next birthday comes in. But we're going to take a quick break here.
We'll all hear about it, too.
Absolutely. Of course we will. We're going to take a quick break here on the show. Here is an exclusive from TJ Wilson before tonight's Fastlane event. Yeah, man, once we get back to the real normal, not this new normal that everybody's talking about, right? But you mentioned Sasha and Bailey. The last time we spoke, you were working a lot with the women's division. Yeah. Is that still the case? And even on Sasha and Bailey specifically, how much fun has it been for you to sort of really see them fly the flag and be a lot of people's sort of MVPs of this crowdless era that we're in?
I mean, I don't know. It'd be, maybe I'll be, I don't know if I'm biased, but I do work with them a lot. I don't know. If they weren't the MVPs of this, pandemic wrestling, then I honestly don't know who is. But the truth is, if you watch, a lot of our talent stepped up, and especially a lot of the women. Like, I was very proud of the Battle Royal on Raw maybe 3 weeks ago, right before the draft, or the day of the draft, during the draft. I was very proud of that match. I thought it was very well done. I thought all the talent were great, and it's cool to see even like I worded that wrong, but like the triple threat this past week on SmackDown, with Natty and Ruby and Zelina, and the triple threat the week before I thought was very good as well, with Billy, Natty, and Bianca, who I think has Natty, obviously her work speaks for itself. She's the longest. I don't know that there's been a woman that's wrestled in WWE as long as her for without a break. Actually, I take that back. I know there hasn't. And then secondly, she has the most matches in WWE for a woman and the most wins. So her career speaks for itself. But you got someone like Bianca who has a ton of potential, and the sky's the limit. And I think Billie Kay is going to surprise a lot of people as well. Like, I think that triple threat opened a lot of eyes that maybe hadn't seen Billie in a certain light before. And we already know that she has personality for days. We already know that. So it's good to show that she also, has some ring prowess as well.
Nice. I uploaded the YouTube version again, not the clip version. There you guys go. There's a nice little preview of the end screen of our YouTube videos. Another that we've
finally made it out of bed.
We've got Mighty Joe Morin joining the show. See, we no-sold that you weren't here. We kept it casual for you. We're good to go.
Wakey.
I apologize.
How you doing?
My alarm totally didn't go off, and I was all set to be here, and technology has failed me today.
Hey, Spencer, how ironic was it that you showed a clip with TJ Wilson, and then we actually find somebody who's actually on hard time?
Very, very well played. And of course, we're going to get into the matches with tonight's Fastlane taking place. And I think that a great place coming off of that is with the Women's Tag Team Championship match tonight. But the first thing we got to do is say hello to our friends at Putting You Over, some great individuals. It's pretty nice to be able to sing their praises every week, whether it's on the Sunday brunch or the P.O.S Show. They're great guests, great people, putting out great content. Give them some support. Again, if you're watching on Twitch, it's pretty easy to access them. You've quite literally got one click to go over and follow. If you're on YouTube or Facebook, take a couple extra seconds, take those couple extra clicks, and support some good people in professional wrestling. As TJ alluded to, there are some great professional wrestlers on the women's side of things that are doing some great things. So let's just pick up where one of the greats left off, and let's start talking about the women in tonight's show. The women's tag team title match, Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler defending their title against the ragtag group of Sasha Banks and Bianca Belair. I'll kick her off because I think it's a point that all of us have made each other at some points before. Is anybody else as tired as I am of these thrown together tag teams? You see, even on NXT last week, that Karrion Kross and Finn Balor are teaming together in the main event. I don't like it unless there's a story there. And there's definitely been some great examples of stories like the Golden Truth, right? Like anything pretty well Goldust is that, I think, is a pretty easy example for that, right? But even you look like, excuse me as I hiccup there, the two-man power trip, they come together because of a natural story. I think that you eventually can build to these sort of ragtag teams being legitimate teams. That's the worst word I can put on it. But I don't think that this is that situation, because you've got one of the women challenging the other women for their championship at WrestleMania. I think that if there was to be something like you're even seeing with Natalya and Tamina right now, where they're starting to establish themselves as a tag team rather than two individuals, that's sort of the situation I would have liked to have seen play out here, rather than putting Banks and Belair in there. I think that they could have had Banks defend against someone, Belair screws her at the end, whatever. There's a lot of room where you can continue this story. And maybe get someone like a Natty and Tamina in there, or, Naomi and Lana. I know they lost their challenge, but I still think there's a story to be told there. It's not a dead story by any means for me. So I'm excited for the match. Like we talked about in the intro there, I think that it's rare for me to go into something expecting a bad match, quote unquote. It's four talented women, four individuals that have done some really solid work over the last little bit. Whether you like Nia Jax, Shayna Baszler, you can't disagree that they've been at least a pretty solid tag team together over the last couple of weeks. So I'm good to go with this match. Do I wish they would have went a different direction? potentially, but I think I'm good on it.
So what's
Joe
your
Jr.,
prediction?
we'll go to you. I am going to go Banks and Belair lose. Nia and Shayna retain. I just don't know. Like, I don't know if it's a miscommunication or I don't know if Sasha Banks is going to do something by hook or by crook. And the only reason I say that is just because I think that Sasha's naturally going to be the heel in this, and rightfully so. She's badass, right? I'm going to go with Nia and Shayna, and Sasha screws them. That's what I'm going to go with. It's a tough prediction to make, but I'm planting the flag, brother.
I mean,
very vague.
Yeah,
Very vague.
You stole my thunder a little bit. I think like you addressed, I think this time putting them together, like they already had this match. This match already happened and they lost. Like, so I feel like doing it for another pay-per-view that I think it's just lazy. And like you said, when it's a natural thing and there's story behind it, I'm all for it. Like some of the better tag teams we've seen in past times have been two people just put together. But there was
to interrupt on a quick shout there that I got to point the ball.
There you go.
Great example of it. Great example.
But you kind of stole my thunder with the pick. I am going Jackson Baszler as well, and I do think Sasha will walk out. I know they hinted. I know it happened.
Walk out. All right.
I do. I think maybe there's a bump where Sasha's on the apron, or there's miscommunication that leads to them running into each other, or someone getting knocked off the apron, and then Sasha kind of says the hell with this and is like, I'm out. Not saying that Sasha's going to go full heel, because I don't know if they want to do that, but she is naturally one of the better heels they have, even though she's been a face for the majority of the last year, since she won the title at least. But that's my pick. I'm siding with you. I'm going Jackson Baszler with Sasha walking out and leaving Bianca to take the fall.
All righty. Well, Parrish, we'll go to you next because Joe, I guess, likes to save the best for last, whether it's appearances or making picks.
and here you thought you had to sleep or wake up, Spencer. We'll give that extra.
I'm still having a tough time with the wake up. Don't get me wrong.
We'll give that extra minute to Mighty Joe. I'm just saying we'll give that extra minute to Mighty Joe because we still see the sleep in his eyes, so we need that.
Yeah,
we need him to drink his Joe so he's ready to go.
Unfortunately, I didn't have any.
Man, you're just really not.
Well, we got two.
We got two Joes here. I crawled out of bed realizing that you guys were on. Like, I need to get on like right now. So.
Rolled out of bed and into the studio. But either way, Parrish, you're the one critiquing me for not making a prediction eearlier. It sounds like you're trying to avoid it.
No, I said it was vague, completely different. But thanks for putting words in my mouth. So I'm actually going to do the same thing. I'm picking the retain of the title, but I'm actually going to say Reginald is actually going to help Jackson Baszler win. So I'm going to go with Nia Jax pinning Bianca Belair to get the win here, and then I'm actually going to think that Sasha is going to maybe attack Belair afterwards, because I do think we're going to get a little bit of a teaser between them. There has to be. I agree with Sasha being the heel. It just seems like this is that underdog story for Belair that I really wish they'd start telling us right now, because I'm not seeing it. But yeah, it's the same thing. The champions retain, but I'm giving you kind of a different scenario, because I do believe Sasha Banks is going to make that, Banks statement.
The heel turn. Yeah.
I want to do a play on words. So, but yeah, she's going to attack Belair after the match, kind of like help her up, give her a shot, maybe that little backstabber gimmick. But yeah, I think that's what we'll see. And it'll then get going next on SmackDown. So same thing, retain, but you see Nia Jax pinning Bianca Belair.
Fair cop. Joe, Mighty Joe, we will go to you. God, see, this is what happens is you set me up so that I could only go with one Joe. It was great. I said Joe, one person responded, and now
I'm sorry. Well, when it comes to this, I'd love to pick Banks and Belair just out of pure spite, just because I hate Nia Jax. But given the situation, I will go with them retaining. But it is going to be like a disqualification. There's going to be some kind of shenanigans that happens to where it's not like it's like a clear victory. It'll be muddied somehow. Somebody's going to screw somebody over, and it's kind of further these storylines. Like I said, I'd love to bet against them just purely out of spite. But I will say they retain, but there'll be some obvious shenanigans that are going to happen.
The one thing that I want to know, and I probably missed it if it did happen, like, has Adam Pearce done anything with Nia and Shayna since rooting that NXT match? Like, and again, that could have been something, or even if it was Reginald that came out and helped out, whatever it may have been. Again, it just seemed like a bit of inconsistent storyline. But I also think that maybe, like you alluded to a bit, it could be something that plays out tonight. I wouldn't have an issue with that.
As Joe Jr. said, it's lazy storytelling.
And I don't think you're wrong there either. Even if they would have, there needs to be, like you say earlier, Joe Jr., some sort of tease or some sort of something like that. And there hasn't been any interaction whatsoever.
It's just stupid booking from Bad Creative.
A great one here. I want Banks to go full heel backstabber and cut the ponytail. I think that'd be real neat. I don't know. I don't know if they would be. And that Parrish, I think you're bang on. I think that's either a Mania moment or you set that up. And like, I don't know who a potential opponent would be, but like Bianca Belair in a hair versus hair match is something that I think is like a money match down the table somewhere. Yeah. Real money. So I don't know if they do it now just based on like they're just trying to. Sometimes, Parrish, you need to quit interrupting people. I've noticed. There's just so much room there with what they've done with Bianca so far, and they've built her up with, like, the hair's a part of a personality. And I don't know if you would want to take that away this close to Mania. I think if you were to have started the story with it, like somebody comes out, shaves her head the night after the Royal Rumble, something along those lines, then yeah. I just don't know if you'd want to make that a story point, because I think it's something that's such a good story foundation or a story's conclusion.
So you hit on something there, Spencer. Now, if they're clever, like you just hinted at, if you were to cut that ponytail off, or God forbid, like shave her entire head, you have that tie into the storyline. Yeah, her character changed because that was something that was like you could play off, not necessarily something supernatural, like the hair was like controlling her or anything stupid like that.
Well, like Samson. Samson lost his strength when the hair got cut, right?
Exactly, right. You have that. You cut the hair and then you have it alter her character, right? So that's to me that would make logical sense. But once again, I remind the wrestling company that we're talking about here. So I think anything is for a game at this point.
Yeah, that makes sense. Doesn't always apply, but I think we're all aligned. Joe, you've made your call. I think that covers us off for the Women's Tag Team Championship match. So let's move to a very different kind of train wreck. Braun Strowman is wrestling Shane McMahon. 13-year-old Spencer is very excited.
I thought this was happening at WrestleMania.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
They have been inconsistent with it, because there's been advertising on it coming on this show and advertising saying that it's not on the show. So my thought is that let's predict it. Worst case scenario, it's eliminated, because I am as confused as you guys are, and let's play safe than sorry. Braun Strowman loses dirty. That's all I need to say. Shane McMahon's going to come out with a win in this one if it happens. And let me tell you, I'd be very excited for that. If it's happening at WrestleMania, there's got to be some hooker by crook on this one. And I don't know how you do it, but Shane McMahon is, I don't know if you guys know, but very prone to doing dumb things involving professional wrestling moves and maneuvers. So I don't know what he could possibly jump off of in the Raymond. They're still in Raymond James, right? Not Raymond James, baseball stadium.
Tropicana Field.
Thank you. So they're still in Tropicana. I don't know what you would jump off of, but I'd hazard a guess that Shane McMahon jumps off of something and beats Braun Strowman. Or we get the corporate ministry back. If we want, if my predictions are too vague earlier, then I'm going to go all the way in. The return of the corporate ministry.
Interesting.
Not bad. All right.
Or the match just doesn't happen.
Well, yeah.
That was my vote.
I would think everyone assumed this was going to Mania, like we talked about, right? So the fact that they announced it for Fastlane completely confused me. Again, like we said, and we'll probably say again, nothing really confuses me when it comes to WWE, because they just do stuff to do stuff sometimes. But I feel like if this is the plan for Mania, we're not just going to I mean, they could, because they've done it before, but it feels weird to me that we would just have the same match twice within a month. So I know it's my first time here, but I'm picking a no contest. I'm picking a draw here.
You're going deep.
I think if the match happens, Strowman just throws Shane all around the arena because it's not a no holds barred or a street fight, right? It's a 1-on-1 booked match, correct? Pinfall submission. So I think this turns
according
into
to the fine folks at WWE.com.
There you go. So I think that if the match does take place, this turns into Strowman getting his revenge from Monday because Shane made him look stupid with all the slime or whatever they were doing. And I think Strowman beats the crap out of him, and the match never officially starts, or they just call it off, and it's just Strowman beating the pulp out of Shane, and then they have the actual match at WrestleMania. So I'm going to pick a no contest / draw, double DQ, something. Not going to happen.
This is the second straight week we've had slime references on the show, which is something I hope to see continue next week on the Sunday brunch. I hope that we can keep a consistent slime theme going. Like if it ends up becoming worth it, and we get like a slime counter, right, where you're seeing that plate of bacon and eggs right now, I know which preference I'd have. Mighty Joe, we'll move to you on this one. Braun Strowman taking on Shane McMahon, and what should be a technical wrestling classic. Your thoughts?
I don't know about that part of it. I'm still very, very confused by this, scratching my head. I'd be pulling my hair out if I had much hair in my head, but I shaved it down recently, so I can't do that. What I can do is do a very Canadian thing, and I'm going to take a toonie, and I'm going to just flip it and pick.
Excellent.
And it is landed on its edge, so which means I also want it to not happen and it to move on to another show. Moving on to the next.
All right. We're moving to another no contest. I'm loving it. Parrish, you've got to be having some wild thoughts about the technical wizardry that these two can pull off. What say you about Braun Strowman versus the in-ring wizard Shane McMahon?
First off, we're going to get a collar elbow tie-up because, God forbid, if a match doesn't start that way. And then we're going to get an absolutely shit because I don't think these guys know how to wrestle. I actually don't. We know how Shane likes to go with those stupid quick jabs that don't even look real, and then Strowman just goes, run, and then all of a sudden we're bored. So I'm
guys. I believe that's called the Shane O'Mac shuffle.
Yeah.
Yeah. It looks like a truffle shuffle, but skinny. But I'm going to call Braun Strowman beats up Shane McMahon to the point where Shane McMahon will get the win via disqualification. Braun will just get disqualified by kicking Shane's ass. Shane still gets the win. Therefore, Braun will still get his Mania win moment. So Shane by DQ.
I like this one. Going out on a limb, where's Baba Tunde from Underground? I believe he was going by the name of Daba Kato. I could see him joining Shane and helping him win. And let me tell you, if we're actually going to go down that route, I got no issue with it whatsoever. You want to talk about, again, the long-term storytelling? Whether you like the story or not, that's an entirely different subject. But if Daba Kato was to make a part in this and he was to get involved for Braun being his only defeat in Raw Underground, cool. I'm so in for stuff like that. And if we end up with Daba Kato versus Braun Strowman at WrestleMania, again, for me, with no knowledge of the actual mechanics of how in-ring stuff works, I don't know how the match would go over. Don't get me wrong there as far as, again, the joke I'm making on the technical in-ring wizardry. Braun versus Daba Kato would certainly not be the most pristine match, I guess. But let me tell you, sometimes pro wrestling is at its best when it's just two big dudes beating the hell out of each other. I think I say it every time I get the opportunity to, but Goldberg versus Lesnar at Mania 34, like that's an all, or 33,
very good.
Like that's an all-time great for me as far as Mania matches go, and for very different reasons than a lot of my other favorite WrestleMania matches. I love a good car wreck in pro wrestling, and if those two guys could pull it off, I'd love it. I would just love it. I don't really have much else to say about it. It's not my official prediction, though. I think that we're going to get like an unveiling of Daba Kato. I think that he'll maybe appear tomorrow night. If we can.
I'm okay with that. Yeah, and like you said, two monsters at WrestleMania. Everyone remembers that. And again, not the level of where these guys are, but like when you see that famous picture of Hogan and Andre, that's two big dudes getting ready to fight each other, you know? And
iconic.
There's not a and there's not a ton of big guys anymore in WWE. You know, the more big guys in WWE than a lot of other places. but it's very rare that you have that two big people going at each other, So with that at Mania with Shane on the outside as the foil in between, like, yeah, I'm all for that too,
Love it. Anybody else have final thoughts on Strowman McMahon, or are we going to move on to another match here?
Let's move on.
Sounds good. Mighty Joe, I'll let you take the pick on this one. Do we want to talk about Nakamura Rollins, or do we want to talk about McIntyre Sheamus in a no-holds-barred contest?
I guess we can go with Seth and Nakamura. And now, keeping in mind with this, a little disclaimer, like even in our own little private chat, I let all these guys know that I've been watching a ton of New Japan Pro Wrestling this past week, the New Japan Cup. So I am very, very much out of the loop as to what the hell is going on here.
This is played a little off of Joe said right off, or Mighty Joe, Joe Jr., whichever frickin' one of them you are. Joe Jr. was saying off the bat at the start of the show that this is sort of played off of the whole Cesaro relationships. Shinsuke stepped in about 3 weeks ago, and just sort of confronted Seth backstage, and it's sort of been a bit of a three-way dance from that point on. Shinsuke, I guess, for lack of a better way to put it, is just the guy who got the match.
Interesting. A three-way dance, so to speak. If we were going to use ECW terminology, I think it might have actually been interesting. But in this particular case, it reminds me back. I think we're going back a few years now, where they faced off, I believe, for either the Intercontinental or the U.S. title. It was actually ended up being a pretty good match, but it was so poorly promoted and kind of set up, and it was like the first time these two guys were meeting, and it was such a shame because it ended up actually being a decent match. But
that was the Survivor Series match, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was IC against US champ.
Yeah,
IC versus US champ.
And there's always a potential for a good match with these two guys, but it's one of these ones where, it doesn't help that I'm not watching everything that's going on, so I have no investment in this whatsoever. But there's always the potential for there to be a great match with these two guys. As somebody who is a fan of Japanese wrestling, Nakamura is one of the best. So I'm hoping that they can at least do something cool here. I would have liked to have gotten a little bit more emotional investment in this, but they might still pull something off. If I have to take a pick on this, I gotta go with my boy Shinsuke, being a fan of the Japanese.
Alrighty, Parrish, we'll go with you next. We'll sort of make the counterclockwise rotation this time.
I feel like we're actually going to see some involvement out of Cesaro. I think this whole match is designed to build Cesaro and Seth, but I also have a feeling we also might see Buddy Murphy as well in this. We're seeing, for God knows why, Buddy Murphy trying to align himself with Seth after kicking his ass and breaking away, dating a very young Aaliyah who's no longer there, which color me confused.
All of them.
I am. Yeah. So I have a feeling that we're actually going to probably see Cesaro cost Seth the win. So I'm picking Nakamura over Seth because Cesaro gets in Seth's head, therefore really gives a reason. I think Seth is in that position where he's going to help out guys kind of get over. He can take a loss without really hitting anything. He is that good where a loss actually can benefit him. So I'm picking Nakamura based off of Cesaro distraction.
All right, Joe Jr.
Yeah, I'm picking the exact same as Parrish. I think Cesaro gets involved. I don't think it'll be anything physical, but I think, it's still storyline that him and Nakamura are friends because they were that tag team for a bit. So they're still friends. The whole thing, like you said, started with Nakamura kind of stepping up to Rollins about Cesaro kind of. So I think Cesaro gets involved, distracts Rollins. Nakamura gets a big win against Seth Rollins, which is a big win. And that sets up the full-on build to Rollins and Cesaro at WrestleMania.
Okay. While I respect all of your opinions, I disagree to the death with all of them. I personally think... Thanks. I'm happy that one got sold for.
Sorry, had to go Ghostbusters on you.
So for me, as much as I want Shinsuke Nakamura to win this match, as much as I'd love to see him use this as a platform to go on to bigger and better things at WrestleMania, it's unfortunate, and the way I can best put it is you've got to sort of break some eggs to make an omelet. And I think that the omelet they're trying to make right now is finally establish Cesaro as a single star. That's not a unique point that anybody here hasn't made already, but the way I think that they do that is you make Cesaro look like a hero. You make Cesaro look like the everyman, for lack of a better way to put it. And I don't think you do that when he's coming out and trying to play mind games and stuff like that as part of a feud with or part of a match involving two other individuals. I think what you're going to see happen tonight, I think number one, this is my early contender for match of the night. I think they're going to friggin' tear it up. Like you said, Joe, that Survivor Series match was absolutely insane. And I'm very, very excited for this one. I think it has gotten that little bit of, I guess, proper promotion. Yeah, like you alluded to earlier. This match seems like it matters in a way that it didn't at Survivor Series a couple of years ago. For me, I think that Buddy Murphy coming back is definitely an odd decision, but I also think that that's the way they're going to go with it. So I think you're going to see Buddy Murphy get involved. He'll be directly involved in the finish. Seth Rollins is going to win the match after whatever Buddy Murphy does something. Seth wins. They start to lay the boots to Shinsuke Nakamura, and Cesaro makes the save. Is sort of my thought there, and that'll set up for Cesaro and Seth at WrestleMania. It makes Cesaro again look like that hero coming to save the day. I think that Shinsuke, I do have a lot of issues with some of the wins he's not had or the losses he has had in WWE over the last few years. But I also still think after his performance since that gauntlet match 2-3 months ago, he has been presented well. And I think he is at a point where as long as the circumstances are right, as anyone, I'm sure, but the circumstances are right, he can afford to take a loss here. So maybe you see him in Cesaro's corner at WrestleMania and Buddy Murphy in the other. Maybe you see Shinsuke and Murphy on the pre-show or something along those lines. Again, there's different routes you can take with that. And I think that if the goal is to benefit Cesaro, and Cesaro is going to be the guy to have the WrestleMania moment, keep making him look like a hero. And I just don't think him coming out and causing a distraction does that effectively as him saving the day.
It's fair.
As long as it's not at the expense of Shinsuke Nakamura, as long as it doesn't make him look like a fool. That's my only
exactly
concern,
it.
right? And
you're bang on, man.
If they do have to go that angle, though, you get so that Shinsuke is pissed off and he goes on a tirade, right? So you gotta then capitalize if you're gonna do that. Otherwise, you make him look like an idiot, and then they've done that too much with him.
I agree. And I think that, we could almost have titled this show like the caveat show with it, but I think that that's a caveat we have to make in any match, right? Like if, as much as Seth Rollins has been doing great work, if he comes out and loses a 2-minute squash match to Shinsuke tonight, well, I want Shinsuke to win, but I'll still look at that and say, what the expletive deleted, right? The story has to be told well in every situation. I just think that there's a lot of potential for a story there of Cesaro overcoming. I've been enthusiastic about him for years. I know all of you guys have too. Fuck, the internet wrestling community has been for years. And I'm just so confident that this is finally it. So I'm prepared to get my heart broken with it, but I'm putting my eggs in the Cesaro basket. Well, and putting you over saying the same thing. Cesaro's contract is coming up. He's getting that WrestleMania moment. So whether it's morally right or whether it's for reasons of the best return. Did he? Good.
Did he? Yeah.
Good. Then give him that push. Give him that.
Because that was actually going to be a question of mine. Because that was actually going to be a question of mine. Because if something were to happen to where nothing happens, like would he be ready to go elsewhere? Because in my mind, I would almost kind of have liked that, but I digress on that. So if he's already signed, if he's already signed,
so this company has a history of kind of giving you a little bit of a push after you re-sign, because I do believe like if the Revival or Gallows and Anderson, like I think Gallows and Anderson got a tag title right after they re-signed.
Yeah, they won him at the Rumble a couple of years ago.
Yeah. So like I believe if the Revival would have re-signed, they would have had like a push of some sort and then be told to wear Oktoberfest stuff. So but yeah, no, that they have a history of giving as pushes right when they re-sign. So
yeah,
I think we're seeing that right now.
Hopefully, it's not something just for the sake of doing it, like just like a small push and then okay, go away now. Hopefully they can actually fully invest in him. Damn it,
you betcha. You betcha. Now, We've got one more match we're going to get to before we head to another quick break. Before we do that, of course, we got to give a shout out to some of the folks here in the comments, like everything pro wrestling. Again, it's very, very cool to me. And I know I can speak for the three of you guys here too, that it's nice to see so many consistent people in here. It's so cool to be building a neat little community here on Sunday mornings on Love Wrestling. Thanks for joining us. And I've got to put myself over. Thank you for the happy birthday. Always appreciate it. We got one more match we're going to touch on before we head to the break, and it's one that I think is a good one to head to break with because it could be one that causes a lot of conversation and therefore allows us to plan our last segment a little more efficiently. So, Randy Orton will be facing off with Alexa Bliss this evening on Fastlane, and it's I don't think that it's an unexpected development, but it is still odd to see WWE actively advertising an intergender match. Whether the match actually happens or not, or how they sort of choose to go about it. You know, this isn't like when Asuka was wrestling James Ellsworth 5 years ago, right? This is two marquee superstars in a marquee storyline right now, heading into the biggest show of the year. Is it going to be a traditional wrestling match, I guess, is the debate for a lot of people. But even just seeing it was a bit odd for me. Parrish, I'll touch for your opinion first because we haven't gone to you first yet.
Yeah, it's okay. I accidentally have a booger on my pants. I'm trying to clean that off. So I figure there's a sound clip for you, Spencer.
Tune in to the P.O.S Show. If that's not advertising for the P.O.S Show.
Right. But I have a feeling we're actually going to get more of less of a match. We're not really going to get a match. We're going to get kind of like a cinematic type thing, I believe. This is like a perfect opportunity to do something like that. Whether this is like the full-fledged Alexa's Playground, like whether we get a trip in there, I don't know. But I do believe we're actually going to see the return of The Fiend in not a visual form per se of like, oh my God, he's back, but we're actually going to get proof that he's still alive. Yep. I think there's going to be like a big monument that he's still alive, and WrestleMania is going to be like a final inferno of the fiery feud of Randy Orton and The Fiend. I had to go with a fire pun. I'm sorry. So if there is a reason for a no contest, I think this can be it. However, if we do have a match, I'm going to go with Bliss over Orton on this one. And I do believe Randy Orton is going to look super good out of this match, but I do believe we're going to see the return of The Fiend, proof that he's still alive, and late condolences to Randy Orton, who just lost his uncle, by the way.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's a very good point to actually make. Fair point, Parrish. Moving on from there, Joe Jr., we will go to you for your thoughts on Randy Orton versus Alexa Bliss tonight.
Yes, I do believe this will be a cinematic match. And I agree with Parrish, but not 100%. I actually think at the end, like towards the end of the cinematic match, that Alexa Bliss is going to turn into The Fiend. And then I think that's what happens because they've been given the hints for months now that The Fiend is inside or controlling Alexa Bliss, right? So I think how it ends is Orton looks like he's about to end it, and I do agree with Parrish that Orton's going to look great throughout the most of what we see tonight. But I think towards the end, Bliss might be coming towards her end, and she's going to turn into The Fiend. And then I don't know if The Fiend would be able to win that match, so I don't know. But I would say Alexa Bliss will win, but because she turns into The Fiend, and then that's obviously the way we're going for Mania.
Fair call, Joe Jr. or Joe Mighty Joe. Jesus, I'm going to get Cliff Notes going here. So if we've got the Quizplex drinking game for when I pop in, we can probably have a Sunday morning for how many times I screw your names up.
Yeah, you can
Mighty Joe.
You turn into a drinking game every time you get the name that gets the wrong Joe, you get a drink. But
I don't see the headache away, Spencer.
That'd take the headache away, and then it'd take me away pretty quickly, I'm certain.
I do agree with everybody else here that it's going to be a cinematic thing. It needs to be in this particular case, and I think we really need to kind of to keep it in the realm of the supernatural because, again, I'm somebody that. We need to be careful with this because I can suspend disbelief up to a certain point. But they want to be careful that we don't insult people's intelligence, right? We literally murdered somebody. So the only way that you can bring them back is like in this kind of metaphysical manifestation in Alexa Bliss, or the only other way you could bring Bray Wyatt back is as a completely different character, because you literally murdered him. You set him on fire in a wrestling ring and you killed him, right? That's the only way that you can bring him back, is in either one of those ways. So they need to tread carefully, either keep it totally in the supernatural, or if you bring him back in a physical form, it needs to be as a completely different character. And
Fair
having
points
said
to
that,
all of you.
and having said that, because of all the shenanigans that are going to kind of go on, it's going to be like a basically like a throughout. Like, it's going to be like a no contest. There's not going to be any clear winner coming out of this, because there's just going to be too much shenanigans and other stuff kind of going on.
Well, friends, while I defend your opinions to the death, I do not agree with them. I got to be honest. In the nicest way possible to the promotion, I don't know if WWE's got the creativity for that right now. I don't know if it's gonna. I just don't know. And I love the supernatural elements of professional wrestling, like Bray Wyatt and The Fiend. This shit's my jam. This is my favorite kind of way in professional wrestling. I don't think they're going to go full cinematic with this. I think it would have been advertised much more heavily as a cinematic match if they were going to go that route. I'm going to go bold here. I'm calling Alexa Bliss wins it in less than 10 minutes with a Sister Abigail. There's going to be a Fiend distraction. There will, and I think that you guys are all bang on when you say that, like, Randy Orton will be teasing the RKO. He'll be teasing the RKO. Fiend on the screens. Elf on the shelf. Had to make the joke, sorry. And then Alexa Bliss, like you guys say, is in that bit of her, Fiend persona. And quite literally, I think just hits the Sister Abigail for the win. I think there's going to be a lot more wrestling in this match than we've been led to believe thus far. That's why, like, WWE's done stuff like this. And I know, again, the comparison with Randy Orton and James Ellsworth is about as apples and baseballs as you can get. It's not even fruits. But I really do think that there's a lot of room for some fun in this one, to be honest. And I think that Randy's proven he'll get physical with women before. You look at the Royal Rumble 2 years ago when Nia Jax entered. Alexa Bliss has shown that she'll take bumps that a lot of other people won't do. It's bold. This might be where we look back on the Love Wrestling turning point and say this is where Spencer either lost his championship or defined the definition of carrying it into WrestleMania. But
before we move
see.
on, I just want to dovetail off Mighty Joe Jr.'s point. We've been hearing Fiend say "let him in" or "let me in" for the longest time. What happens if tonight was the time where Alexa Bliss let them out?
Yeah, like there's lots of room.
I feel like that actually is a very good prediction, and I actually like that. I really want mind games out of this. I don't want wrestling. I want storytelling. This is the only true storytelling we've been seeing outside of Roman Reigns on WWE TV.
Yeah. Got to give a quick shout to Kyle Shaw, of course, makes a great point. Maybe Orton just annihilates her, crosses the line, and Bray returns as a face to avenge her. I think he is going to return as a face. I think that's been the plan this whole time, is keeping him off screen for the huge pop. We also have in here, along the same line, putting you over. I want a punt kick to Bliss. Lights go out. And cool. You know what? Again, that's a very – it's a realistic possibility. It's bold, but it's certainly something that I could see happening this afternoon or this evening, whenever they so choose to put the match on the card. We're going to take a quick break. We got 4 matches and about 15 minutes to get through them. So refill your drinks, folks. We got an exclusive from my recent interview with Matt Taven that'll carry you over for about a minute and a half. We'll see you then. Hell yeah, man. Now you've had some time to let it breathe. Like you said, it's been about a year or a real year since you carried the heavyweight championship. I don't like using the word legacy, especially when I would have to guess sooner rather than later you would want to be going after that championship again. But when you look back at your Ring of Honor title reign, what would you say your legacy, or what would you say people looking back on your reign would say about Matt Taven's reign as world heavyweight champion?
Well, I guess it would have to depend on who you ask. I've never been loved by the internet community, which it is what it is at this point. But I always felt like, I joke to other people in the locker room, like I'm the Rodney Dangerfield of wrestling. Like I get no respect. But I feel like a great artist, those people that go back and watch it now, it's hard to see any holes in it. And I took a lot of pride being the champion at that time. I mean, we knew what was coming. It was, you know, half the roster had left on the last day of the year before. And there's only a couple of people that really would want to have that spot because it's not the best one to have, knowing what's coming down the pike. But that's what drives me as a competitor. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, not only have I been a wrestling fan my entire life, but I've been an athlete, someone who's been involved in some sort of sport my entire life, and someone who just has a competitive nature. If we're going to play Monopoly, I will go all 16 hours until I win.
Or I'm flipping the board when I lose.
Exactly. Or I'm accusing you're the banker, you've been cheating this entire time. One or the other is going to happen. So like, you know, that competitive spirit in me is like, let's do this. Like, I'll take the heat. I'll throw it on my shoulders. Let's go back or let's go forward and I'll take the punches. And when you go back and you watch, you know, I think me and Volador Jr., me and Tracy Williams, me and Flip, me, Jay Lethal, and Kenny King in New York. I'm sure I'm missing a bunch that later. Even I like the Alex Shelley match. There's so many. I mean, there was just match after match after match. And, you know, I'm every single month I'm putting out these videos, this new promo, having a new match with another person. And maybe I'm biased. Maybe it's me. I don't know. But I dare say anyone wants to go back and watch it. It's something that I'm very proud of. And I truly believe will be looked back at fondly when we get to look back at it with a little clearer heads with retrospective.
And there you go, Matt Taven, a great individual and interview that I really hope you guys, if you haven't checked out yet, you do take the time to check out, because I again stress and I feel like I repeat myself with it, but I am so damn lucky to get to chat with great people in pro wrestling, and it just so happens that a lot of them happen to be great pro wrestlers too. Matt Taven is available wherever podcasts are played or videos are viewed. Feel free to head over and check that out whenever you get the chance. But that's then. This is now, and we're chatting WWE Fastlane with the Love of Wrestling Elite Championship on the line. If you guys are in the comments section, of course, I will always continue to encourage you guys to head to the comments. Let us know your thoughts, your predictions, your spoilers, your whatever you've got going on about tonight's event or anything else we want to chat in pro wrestling. Using that Matt Taven launching point as someone who just seems to give a shit and had to carry a brand on their shoulders through a really tough time, I think there's a good comparison there for Drew McIntyre, don't you think? So there's a good place for us to start our final round of predictions on the P.O.S Show here on Love Wrestling. Joe Jr., I'll head to you on this one first. The no-holds-barred match between Drew McIntyre and Sheamus. We've seen it before, but this is another example of good rematches, in my opinion. Would you agree?
100%. I think, Drew has been a stud for a while now, but he really carried Raw with that title throughout a lot of the pandemic era. And he's obviously fighting Lashley for it at Mania. So obviously my prediction is that he will win this match and look strong heading towards Mania. Sheamus, I think, is having some of the best matches of his career.
Hell yeah.
Like he's been unreal. The last 2-3 months specifically, unbelievable. And there were rumors of him possibly retiring even up to a couple years ago. There were rumors like that. So to see him kind of be given the time and having these matches and having these performances that really makes you remember, like, hey, this guy is one of the top guys in the company still. Like he can go better than almost anybody. Looking forward to this match. I think they're going to beat the shit out of each other. It's going to be wonderful. But I have Drew McIntyre winning and looking good going to Mania. I don't know if we'll see Hurt Business or Lashley. I know Lashley's not fighting.
No.
So I don't know if they make an appearance during this maybe, but I don't think so. I think they let these two guys go, beat the crap out of each other, and Drew wins.
Yep, I'll take it there because there ain't much more for me to expand on that. And the only thing I was going to add to it is there's potentially going to be that stare down with Lashley on the ramp and Drew in the ring after the match ends. It is conspicuous to me that Lashley isn't on the card. Like, ostensibly, and spoiler for the next show that we're going on for the P.O.S show, but like I think it's inevitable to me that Drew McIntyre is winning the championship back at WrestleMania, which would mean that Lashley will be 0-1 in his title defenses on pay-per-view if that is to happen. I'm just speculating here, but Yeah, I think Drew wins. I don't see how you can have a number one contender lose a match on the road to WrestleMania. It's why I'm so frustrated with some of the direction of the Banks Belair feud over the last little bit. It's frustrating anytime a number one contender takes a pin. Like, look at how much it meant when Randy Orton pinned Drew McIntyre in October. His first pin in 8 months, somewhere around that. He hadn't been pinned after the Rumble for sure. And it just makes things means a lot. As talented as Bianca Belair is, it still does take away when you're losing matches on the road to the biggest match of your career, right? So I'm really hoping that doesn't turn out to be the case tonight. The no holds barred stipulation does potentially speak to some Lashley interference. I could see it happening, but I also don't see it affecting if Drew McIntyre wins. And that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Joe, Mighty Joe, it's all you.
In the interest of time here, I will keep my prediction or spoiler very, very quickly, or keep it very brief here. I'm a big fan of both guys, but I do believe that Drew McIntyre will win via murder of Sheamus. Rest in peace, Sheamus.
Via murder. That's a tough one. That's a tough one.
McIntyre is going to murder Sheamus and to really emphasize the point that he is coming to kick Lashley's ass. Like I said, rest in peace, Sheamus.
Well, alrighty, JP.
He agrees with me.
Parrish, it's on to you, buddy.
I think it's pretty easy. Drew McIntyre wins. I kind of agree where Mighty Joe you're going with it. I don't think we're going to necessarily see death involved. However, I'm going to go with multiple Claymore kicks, and I do believe Bobby Lashley is going to come out and kind of have that stare down. And then we're going to see one last Claymore kick before a win, stare down, ramp, Bobby, winning Drew McIntyre in the ring. He's pointing to the sign because, well, not enough WrestleMania point signs right now, and I'm disappointed.
That was going to be my question. Is McIntyre pointing at the sign?
I completely agree. There have been nowhere near enough points to this point. Haha.
So, yeah, Drew McIntyre. Claymore Country is coming out tonight.
Yeah.
Would love it. Ready to move on, folks? We've got our predictions and or spoilers in. Beautiful. Here's one that I think will be a bit of a quicker one, just given that, in my opinion, I don't understand why they ran this match already last week. But U.S. Championship match is occurring this evening. Riddle, the artist formerly known as Matt, will be defending his title against Mustafa Ali, which is going to be a barn burner of a match that is very frustrating to be running back. And I feel like that could almost be like the subtitle or the subheading for this episode of the P.O.S Show, is that great matches, certainly frustrating that this one's getting run back again, especially after their last match was so good. Why you wouldn't be trying to save something like that and build anticipation, I really don't know. But c'est la vie, that's why I don't get paid to book. That's why I don't get paid to talk wrestling at all. I am very excited for the match. I really, really, really hope, and I'm picking this with my heart in the full interest of not feeling fully confident with it. I want Ali carrying that U.S. title into WrestleMania. I would love to see it. The work that he's put in is unbelievable over the last little bit. I've really cooled off personally a lot on Matt Riddle since coming up to the main roster. I think he's one of those guys that is put on great matches and certainly not been unentertaining, but really has gotten a bit lost in the shuffle like a few former NXT call-ups have gone. I think that we can also point to Retribution, maybe not their win-loss record, but certainly their efforts in trying to get themselves over as one of the things I've loved the most in pro wrestling over the last year. Like their online, their social media, even just like the little shots they're taking, at the very least, they're entertaining as a faction. And then when you bring it back to Ali, like he's going on social media and sort of filling all those gaps that aren't being told on TV. And he's cutting promos and he's the one explaining on Raw Talk or talking smack about why he's so upset people are mispronouncing his name and why he would be a great U.S. champion. And I'm not going to speak to it here, but I think we've all seen what Matt Riddle's status online has been over the last little bit. So I think that sort of says all it needs to say there. I am certainly picking with my heart on this one. I don't think it's a meritless pick by any means, but I want Mustafa Ali carrying the U.S. title into Mania. If I wish it, I want it. I must speak it into existence. So here I am, ladies and gentlemen. Parrish, I'll move to you next.
Yeah, I think I've been clamoring for a Mustafa Ali U.S. title reign for a while. However, I do like the story that there's almost that internal collapse within the members of Retribution, not being able to get it done. And I said earlier, WWE has a tendency of pushing guys who re-sign. Well, Riddle also re-signed, so I'm going to go with the booking of Riddle retaining because Retribution costs Ali the win tonight. Although I want the other way around, I want Retribution to do well, help Ali regain a title. I do feel we're not going to get that. We're going to go with Retribution costing Ali the win. Riddle retains.
All righty. Mighty Joe, we'll head to you.
This is a weird one for me because I think that, you know, outside of this company, I think these two guys could have a fantastic match. But now I put myself in the mind of just kind of what's been kind of going on here. I mean, Riddle, somebody who has been sorely damaged coming out into the main roster, so to speak, from NXT, I believe should have stayed at NXT. And I'm getting off a bit of a tangent here, but as soon as we had that moment backstage with Bobby Lashley stomping on Matt Riddle's foot and then him grabbing the wrong foot, you destroyed any credibility or any good stuff that he had there. To me, that just made him look like a fool. If they should have gone further with that if that's what they were kind of going for. And Mustafa Ali's a little guy, right? And it's one of these things where I don't see them putting a United States Championship on Mustafa Ali as much as I would like them to. I don't trust the decision makers to do that. So it's going to stay on the powers that be. And you know, like I just said, I'm a fan of both guys, but I feel like they're in the wrong place. I feel like both these guys should be killing it in NXT, but they're on their main roster screwing around. That's how I feel.
All righty,
so,
Joe
like
Jr.
My pick is my pick is for Riddle to retain the title.
Yeah,
Beauty, Joe Jr.
Yeah, I am picking Riddle to retain as well. However, I am with you, Spencer. My heart does want Ali to win, but sometimes you don't win championships with heart. You got to use your brain sometimes. So I'm sticking with Riddle. But my thing is, right, I think I saw Ali tweet something when this match was signed, and he said, "Oh, Riddle versus a real American." And he was referring to himself as the real American. And I just think the stuff that he says on Twitter when he's talking about what it's like to be a real American as a Muslim and as who he is and stuff like that, that's a character you should be telling on television. Like that to me is so much of a different story that we have seen in forever that you got to lean in on that. And I think him, even if it's with Retribution or not, and with Retribution, I agree with you as well, Spencer, they are not over. The reason they're not over is not because of them. The reason they're not over is because of the booking. They have been working their butts off in ring, on social media. They have been, if they were given better booking on television since they debuted, I believe those people would have gotten over. So I love Ali. I think Ali is an underutilized superstar on their roster big time, but I got to stick with Riddle. I think Vince is behind Riddle. They like Riddle. He just re-signed. I think everything just points to him having the U.S. title heading into Mania.
Fair point. Like I said, I'm picking with my heart. There are a lot of great reasons for Riddle to carry the championship still, but I think there's also a lot more room to tell a story with what they're doing with Retribution. If you look today, Reckoning / Mia Yim posted a photo where it sort of looked like her Reckoning persona was being burned off, I guess is the best way to put it. I don't know. I'm bad at describing art. You know, if you think I shouldn't get paid for this, you should hear me in a museum.
Right for the art critic, I can see it.
This art is bad. I just there's a lot going. I think, you know, and again, to maybe give a little lead into Mania, I've got no issues running Ali versus T-Bar for the U.S. title at WrestleMania. And I think that if you're going to do the breakup storyline, you're going to run it. Maybe they do get their old personas back. Maybe he does go back to being Dominik Dijakovic, a name that not just WWE fans are familiar with. There's a lot to go there. So I don't want to give away too much because we are going to make our next match our minute or less segment. We are getting close on the time, and I always want to make sure that you give the Universal Championship the time that it deserves, damn it. So in a minute or less, well, that's what we're going to right now. That's just going to be the minute or less segment because we've got to make concessions somewhere. So they're getting their match times cut. In a minute or less, Chris Parrish, will go to you first. Why do you believe either Big E will leave as the Intercontinental Champion or Apollo Crews will claim the Intercontinental Championship?
I honestly believe this also could be a match where we don't see a winner. This makes a lot of sense to continue. I actually very much like this angle. Them kicking the crap out of each other is something I'm dialed in for. However, Big E needs to be the champion going in. He is riding a high. We need to see all New Day members with titles at WrestleMania in some fashion. Big E gets the statement win, maybe sets up a multi-man Intercontinental match at WrestleMania. Big ending. 1, 2, 3. Simple. Nothing fancy.
Joe Jr.
I agree. I have loved what they've done leading up to it with this. But I agree. Big E will retain, and I do actually believe that they're doing a multi-man match at Mania for this title. So I think it's going to be a hell of a match. I think this could be a dark horse for match of the night. I think these two guys are great. And I think if they have enough time, they're going to tell a really good story. But I am picking Big E to retain.
Couldn't agree with you more. Joe, it is up to you.
Well, I am going to agree with everybody else. I think Big E needs to retain here, and I will just go on record and saying again, I really feel, I know there are people that disagree with me on this, but what they did with Apollo Cruz's character, I felt was not only really extremely tone deaf. I just don't like it, and I think I think it rubs too many people the wrong way. I think you just have him be just a regular Apollo Crews and just turn it up a little bit. I think you didn't have to turn him into a racial stereotype. That part I don't like, but I still like him as a talent, and I think it's going to be a good match. But like I said, I do see Big E winning this match.
Fair call. And for me, I'm aligned with all of you guys. I think the Big E is he's just the guy to carry that title right now. I can't fathomably see anybody else carrying it into WrestleMania right now. And I think that just speaks to the great work that he's done. I think that if Apollo was to win it, I'd have no issues with it. He has done some great work over the last little bit. I've loved his feud with Big E, and even going back to sort of his old character. I think that that's one thing that yes, there are some things, and I'm not going to dive into too much on it because frankly, I'm just the last person who should. But with comparisons to his old character, Uha Nation, and what he was doing on the independent scene prior to coming to WWE, this isn't all that much different from it. So at least my opinion is that if the performer has consented to it, they're behind it and they're okay with it. That is the only opinion I've got the right to comment on, I suppose. It's a weird way for me to put it, but like I really have enjoyed the work that he's done. I definitely do see some of the criticisms. Don't get me wrong there, Mighty Joe, but personally, I think that they certainly could go wrong ways with it, but to this point, I don't think they have yet. I really love Big E. I think that a multi-man ladder match at WrestleMania for the Intercontinental Championship, like, I don't mean this is a cliche by any means. I think that should be like a staple of the WrestleMania card, or for the U.S. title or something. They had so much. Zack Ryder's win a few years ago was massive. Daniel Bryan 2 years before that. Again, the moments you get from that are absolutely huge. And I think that I think that because of the perception in a positive way that people see of the IC or the US title as stepping stones to something bigger, you would want to see 4, 5, 6 people going after it at WrestleMania because you want to make a statement on the biggest show of the year. So there's my logic for it. I love me a singles match all day, every day, but 15 hours of them spread across 2 nights gets a little tedious. Throw me a ladder somewhere, damn it, and I think this is the place
I'd love
to do
to see
it.
a ladder match. Multi-man ladder match for the Intercontinental. There you go. Book it.
Spencer, a quick duckbill after a point. It is widely known that Apollo, this was his idea to go to this character. So
Perfect.
Apollo is on board with this. He wanted not only a heel character, but he wanted to do this one. So just
Awesome.
so we're aware.
No, thank you. That gives a lot of clarification.
Just keep Vince away from some of the creative ideas. Just saying. Otherwise, you might have him like human meat or something.
I won't disagree with you there. Now, we're going to move on to the Universal Championship match between Roman Reigns and Daniel Bryan this evening. Holy hot damn, am I excited for this one. Those guys have torn it up time and time again throughout the last few years. And by my money, the only reason I would say this isn't Daniel Bryan's run of his career is that guy's had 6 runs of his career that you could make an argument for, whether it's the Yes movement, whether it's his heel run a couple of years ago, coming back, even the run against The Fiend where they had the strap match at the Royal Rumble. He's done some incredible work and he continues to do so. I think it's absolutely indisputable that Roman Reigns is on the run of his career right now, though. Absolutely indisputable. This is much more of a toss-up than I would have thought it would have been. but I think Roman Reigns has to win this one. I think that he's going to carry the title into WrestleMania, and I think it happens because of the special guest enforcer that was announced on SmackDown last Friday. Edge will be there as playing the role of Arn Anderson, the enforcer. I think that we're going to see, I use accidentally here in air quotes because I don't think it's going to be any sort of accident. I think you're going to see Daniel Bryan get hit with an Edge spear, hit with a Roman Reigns spear, and take a 1, 2, 3. And that's how it's going to end. And whether Edge is lining it up conveniently to take out Roman Reigns and accidentally takes out Daniel Bryan, or however it plays out, I think that that's going to be damn close to the finish. I've loved the fact that they've gone back to the Spears Reigns finisher for the last little bit. The Superman punch is cool, but it's such a babyface finisher, right? Like using it is, him still using it is fine, but using it as a finisher would have been a little odd for me. I'm loving the fact they went back to the spear. I think that there's too much history to tie in with him using the spear and Edge being part of it. But hot damn, more than anything, am I just excited for this match. Joe Jr., we will actually, you know what? Excuse me as I improvise here. We'll go to you last because I know you've got some interesting little nuggets that we're going to close the show out with today. So let's go counter the clockwise rotation that I had there. Mighty Joe, we'll go to you first.
The match itself, I'm really looking forward to. My issue here will likely be an unpopular opinion. Okay, now this is based coming out of like I mentioned the last time we all been together. You know, outside of doing this, of doing Turnbuckle Rewind, I do a lot of wrestling content now, doing our own stuff with Turnbuckle Talk, doing Destino, doing stuff with the HMG guys. When I talked to Jargo the last time we did the Destino show, he brought up a good point, and I have to kind of agree with this. When it comes to Roman Reigns, if we're getting to the point where we're liking what he's doing, does that make you a successful heel? When he gets to the point where we actually like what you're doing, should we be hating what you're doing? That's my only kind of issue. I think that's gone to the point to where we're almost on the verge of turning him babyface because we're getting to the point where we're liking the stuff that he's doing. That means you're not really being a good heel, right? So we have to tread very carefully here with this. So having said that, like I said, I'm still looking forward to the match. I just feel like it's almost kind of like the Fiend effect, right? Where we're going for this over-the-top bad guy, but then he's getting over more than everybody else. They're selling all the merch and that stuff like a good guy would, right? So it's getting to that point where it's almost become almost too good to the point where it's almost compromising the character. So that's my only kind of issue going forward with that. But like I said, I'm still looking forward to the match, and I do agree that Roman is going to absolutely destroy Bryan. It's going to be relatively short, and as it kind of should be. And it's going into WrestleMania, going as should be as the big bad guy, like going there and just absolutely annihilate Bryan. As much as I love Daniel Bryan, you got to destroy his ass.
Well, and I think you just hit on all the points I was going to touch on there too, Joe, is because you're right in that he has almost become too cool, too popular. He needs that sort of dastardly moment. And the comparison that I was going to use is, well, Kevin Owens and Chris Jericho. Kevin Owens and Chris Jericho were best friends. They were the most popular thing on Monday Night Raw programming for the better part of a year. And there were a lot of those same complaints. Complaints is the right word for it. And that they're becoming too good, basically. They're becoming too over as bad guys. They shouldn't be. So what do? They doubled down on Kevin Owens. And Kevin Owens at the Festival of Friendship, I don't think anybody here would argue is an all-time great heel turn. If you give a top 50, it's in there, 110%. So I think that you're going to possibly see that moment tonight with Roman Reigns in that, either he destroys Daniel Bryan, or I think you could see him to go after the Usos again. Jay's been there the whole time, maybe finally snaps. Jimmy has apparently been cleared or is very close to getting cleared to returning. If he comes back as part of a celebratory moment and Reigns just takes them both down, same sort of thing. I think that would, like you said there, Mighty Joe, I think that would sort of set the wheels back in motion to not where he should be, but like just making him more evil.
Like I want him literally like putting Daniel through like the monitors, like the Thunderdome, like the fans coming through like the monitors, like start putting him through some of those, like go full on to the point to where like that crowd wants to jump through the screen and grab Roman and like wanting to kick his ass because they hate him so much. That's what you need to really establish him as this big heel again, because like I said, he's on the verge of being a good guy. So just don't go there, but tread carefully. That's all I'll say.
Absolutely. Parrish, up to you.
All right, I'm gonna ducktail off the two real quick before I go with my own because one, I blame not the wrestlers for whether or not you think if they're bad or good because honestly, nowadays you cheer for what you want, you boo for what you want. I say take what they're doing, put it in the real world. If it's really illegal, then they're a heel. If it's considered nice, it's a baby face. I like the bad guys, so if I cheer for them, does that make them a heel? No, because they're still are doesn't make them a face. No, they're still being a heel. Spencer, I like what you said because I actually was thinking the same thing. If anybody remembers the match between Bret Hart and The Undertaker, where Shawn Michaels was the referee, I knew, and yeah, see, this is why I connect with this guy. And you saw the spit in the face, the chair shot. Bret Hart ducks, he smacks The Undertaker. He has to count to 3. I think the exact same thing is going to happen here. Because I was tossing between that. I'm like, hey, what's an easy way of Daniel Bryan being in this triple threat? And I was like, oh, that's easy. He wins the title. Reigns gets his rematch, and then Edge has a clause. Boom, he got an easy triple threat. Well, it's a good creative way of doing it, and then that's exactly it. Have Edge try to hit Roman. He outsmarts it. He hits Bryan. Bryan has a legitimate gripe to why he's not going to WrestleMania. And there it is. Maybe there's a match between Edge and Bryan before Mania. If Bryan wins, he gets it. And I do feel Bryan is the underdog. So I'm going to go with Roman Reigns, but I'm going to say Edge accidentally cost Daniel Bryan. So kind of ducktailing off everyone.
Yeselmania 2 Electric Boogaloo coming your ways this April. Now, Joe, I know you got to get your prediction in, so get your prediction in, and then I am going to cut you off because I know you've got some exciting things to announce as part of our This Week in Love Wrestling. So, your prediction, our graphic, and your big announcement.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of aligned with everybody. I think, to touch on Mighty Joe's point, I think, yes, Roman Reigns is popular right now, but I think I think there's a few reasons. One, he's just been next level currently. Like, I think this is like a Hall of Fame run that he is on currently, and not that he wasn't before that, but you know what I mean. And I think, especially when I look back at the thing that he did with Owens, right? Like, he was winning those matches against Owens in such a bastard way that even though he was so good, like when he won that cage match, when Owens got handcuffed and he's just walking down the steps, out. And I'm like, you son of a bitch. But it was like, it's such, you know what I mean? Like, I was like, So I think as long as they stay in those lines, it can continue to build and build to the inevitable match with Rock next year or wherever they go, But I agree with a lot of you guys. I think Edge I think there's a ref bump on the regular ref. Edge gets in there. He's trying to hit Roman with the spear. He misses. He hits Bryan, and Roman Reigns, while smiling or laughing right in Edge's face, pins Bryan with either Edge. I like the idea of Edge having to count the pinfall too. Like Parrish said, that's a real good one, but I'm going to say the regular ref gets back in the ring or something, and Reigns is just staring at Edge, just laughing as he gets the 3 count. And then I think we see Daniel Bryan versus Edge on SmackDown within the next couple weeks as like the makeup for all this. Yeah. I don't agree with you and Parrish. I don't think Bryan's going to get added. I don't. I think it's going to be one-on-one Roman and Edge. I would love to see Bryan get added because I love Daniel Bryan, but I think it's going to stay a one-on-one. Usually the main titles are one-on-ones at Mania. Very rare is the triple threat, So I think it's going to stay one-on-one, but I think Edge goes for a spear, misses, hits Bryan, and Roman, kind of being the cocky asshole that he is like laughing or making fun of it to Edge as the 3 hits, as the 1, 2, 3.
I love it. I love it. I love it, my friend. Now, we've got the predictions in. We will be throwing up the graphic with all of your contributors, all of our respective predictions in the next little bit over on lovewrestling.ca. So if you aren't giving us a follow on your favorite preferred social media platform of choice, that's what I was holding in. We're everywhere, man. Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Twitch, Patreon. We've got Podbean, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, anywhere that you want to go and check out lovewrestling.ca. Just look up Love Wrestling CA and you'll be able to find us. And you guys want a little sneak peek of what we got coming on here in the next little bit. Boom! There you go. It's an absolutely loaded week for us here at Love Wrestling. Tomorrow, as always, we've got the Poetry of a Promo coming out. He's going to be highlighting some William Regal content, which I know you guys are all as excited about as I am. Our brand new show, NWA Power Out, airs at following Tuesday, episode of NWA Power. That'll take place at about 6:30 p.m. Mountain Standard, but Obviously, with showtimes being what they are, it might be a little later, might be a little earlier. If you guys see there on Friday, I've got TJ Wilson coming on the show. I showed you a clip of that earlier, and I know you guys are going to love that. He's a fantastic individual and one of the all-time greats, and an absolutely loaded Thursday for you guys here on the site. We've got Turnbuckle Rewind coming out with their absolute latest, the Joe. I'll let you touch on after we get to Joe Jr. We've got Josh Robinson coming out with some brand new content on the TNA knockouts in the early era of the division. And then, of course, Thursday night Quizplex. It's the last Thursday of the month, so get your drinks, test your knowledge, and come say hi right here on Love Wrestling. Now, of course, you guys are noticing that there's probably one thing on there that I haven't specifically mentioned coming up this week on Love Wrestling. This Thursday, you can see the premiere edition of the War Report. Joe, I'm going to go to you to explain the brand new content you've got coming our way.
Yes. So it'll be released on Thursdays. It is called the War Report, and it is an NXT AEW recap show of all the Wednesday night wrestling. I know NXT will be moving to Tuesdays, but it will still be an NXT and AEW recap. I know Spencer will be joining in from time to time to help me out until we can find a permanent second co-host and stuff like that, but I'm super looking forward to it. We've been talking about it, me and Spencer, for a few weeks now, a little more than that. But Thursday is the premiere. It'll be released sometime, hopefully Thursday early afternoon on the East Coast time, my time. But yeah, I'm super looking forward to it. I want to start doing more content, and this is the start of it. So look out for the War Report coming to you on Thursdays on Love Wrestling.
Absolutely, man. Mighty Joe, I know you've got great matches lined up every week on Turnbuckle Rewind. That's the case again this week. Run us through what you've got lined up.
Thursday seems to be turning into the Thursday war. We got a stacked day on Thursdays. All of us going head to head on Thursdays. Interesting. Yeah, coming up on Rewind this week, we got an interesting one. We're going to look at some WCW, and specifically, we're going back to 1997, The Outsiders versus the Steiner Brothers. Looking forward to that. You guys are going to dig that. During this time period, I was a big WCW fan, so it's going to be a pleasure going back and look at some of my favorite times with the old WCW.
WCW.
Yes, sir.
Mountain Time Zone sounds like something Spencer just made up. I'm offended and hurt.
It's completely made up. It does not really exist.
It's actually true. It's not a real time zone. However, ask your friends from Colorado, Edmonton, Alberta, or anywhere in that strip of land. We're on it. I can guarantee you. And Parrish, of course, my regular co-host here on the P.O.S Show, a good friend and a guy who's got his fingers in a lot of stuff on Love Wrestling. Where can people keep track of you? Where can people keep up with the latest and greatest from the creator of the Parachute?
Well, as long as it's Mountain Time, you can find me on But I was also going to say, we're all kind of like, Spencer, you and I are on Mountain Time. Joe, I'm pretty sure you're Eastern Time. Mighty Joe, you have clearly shown that you're still on Hard Time. But you can find me on Facebook as everything else. You can find me on the Twitch, but I do have a new handle. It is now at the Chris Parrish. I wanted to have some continuity. I know I'm not WWE, so I like continuity. You can find me on Instagram at Chris.Parrish, on the Twitter at Chris Parrish. For that, that's where you can find me.
Absolutely, friend. And I know I speak for everyone here on the site when we say thank you guys for taking the time to tune in for the POS show this morning. It's been an absolute blast. It was so cool to have both Joe and Joe on the show, because it's always cool to have guests. It's always nice. You guys get to make things a little bit more difficult for me to retain my Love Wrestling Elite Championship, but we'll stay tuned for the later dates, the later hours, to see who actually heads home with the hardware following today's show. Thank you guys once again. It's been an absolute blast. I've been Spencer Love. You can follow me on Twitter at SpennyLove. Pretty well anywhere else I can be found strictly through Love Wrestling. Love Wrestling CA is the place to be if you want to keep up with all of the positive things in professional wrestling, what we love, what you love, and hopefully we continue to bring you more of that here in the near future. For everybody here at Love Wrestling, I have been Spencer Love. Thanks for tuning in.